So both the teachers and the students and employers all identified social and emotional skills as critical for young people, but there were some tensions. There wasn't always alignment. Where 50% of the students ranked social and emotional skills in their top 5, only 30% of teachers identified those. One of the interesting areas was around feedback, with students weren't feeling they were receiving adequate feedback around those skills and abilities, and yet the teachers felt it was being provided. So there were some interesting shifts and differences. We know that in studying the current employment market, there was a large statistic around 40% of current employers felt that young people weren't adequately prepared for work, and they cited social and emotional skills as one of those key areas of lacking. The other large theme coming through the research was around personalised learning. So by that, the definition was around providing young people with the voice, choice, and agency to self-managed learning. And the learners were very clear. They wanted personalised learning. They didn't want their learning to be automated by a computer. They wanted to have teachers who knew them and how they learn. They wanted to have teachers who guided them towards becoming autonomous. So they weren't just being given never-ending choices, but they were being provided with opportunities to develop the skills to be able to self-manage, to self-regulate, to set goals, to engage in work that had meaning to them, that had a sense of purpose. And luckily, 370s came up. When we looked at personalised learning across all of those countries and with thought leaders and the literature review, 70% of the students felt they could master content better if they had more control. Of teachers, 70% cited time as a barrier to be able to personalise learning the way they would like to. And for the students, 70% felt that the pacing or the complexity of content wasn't always just right. So the research had a look at what technologies could possibly make a difference here. And we know from our research that current technologies can save teachers up to 30% of the time they currently use on administrative and routine tasks. And that's time teachers could take to personalise or could take to explore social emotional environments. So 3 big technologies that came up in the full research goes into more detail. One was around artificial intelligence and data and analytics. And this came through in terms of predictive models where the data is analysed and used to predict likely outcomes for learners, and also can show the impact of interventions. So an example, Tacoma School District here in Washington State had a very low graduation rate, around 40 to 50%. They shifted that graduation rate up to 89% by embarking upon a number of initiatives. One of them involved using predictive models so the young people themselves could see the impact that not attending school, the impact of spending more time doing homework, the impact of having a positive mindset was going to have on their eventual outcome. Trend analysis with the data and analytics has come through strongly, and we see many examples across the globe where bringing together the disparate data sets, social, emotional, academic, behavioural, attendance data, health and well-being data, and then using AI or using other analytic approaches, explore the trends and then be able to make sense of that makes a difference. Using AI and data analytics to create more customized learner pathways is another promising area. The second technology that came through the research was really around collaborative platforms. If we think of Microsoft, we think of Teams, or you might think of Yammer. But any environment which allows people to come together is a collaborative platform. And as you know, students can collaborate in Word now. Why this is important: collaboration is great because it develops those social and emotional skills. Brilliant. It's also a way that knowledge is transferred. Collaboration matters because it's where young people can transfer knowledge, and in doing that, it shifts it from the short-term memory into the long-term memory. Collaborative platforms allow young people to explore identity, and it allows them, importantly, to engage in thinking about thinking. So this is where the product of learning is important, but the process of learning is critical. Educators like yourselves would call that metacognition, the thinking about thinking processes. The third promising space was around, and if we go back to the start of the presentation, I talked about the phygital generation, those who don't draw a distinction between physical reality and digital reality, but rather, live in this space that could be called a spectrum between those, and they move between those spaces. And mixed reality could be considered, what we see on our screens, what we see through our screens, like augmented reality, or if you like, what we see within our screens, where it's completely virtualized. And mixed reality showed great promise in delivering on personalized learning and social and emotional skills. So a couple of quick examples. For learning, mixed reality is powerful. It can reduce the cognitive load when you're dealing with 3D. So in the old way, you would look in a textbook of a 3D picture of a cube and attempt to manipulate it to see whether it fulfilled Euler's rule. That's great, but there's a huge cognitive load in trying to translate in your mind between 2D, 3D, manipulate it, and then apply an algorithm. Whether it's a virtual reality or an augmented environment, a mixed reality experience allows you to manipulate that 3D in a simulated 3D space, which reduces the cognitive load of dealing with the abstract and allows you to focus on whatever the mathematical component would be. Same could be applied in the sciences in dealing with atomic structures, being able to manipulate those, or in the life sciences, being able to understand better the launch window to get to Mars. Much easier if you're standing in the middle of it. So it has the ability to free up working memory. The other interesting application is around the ability in these mixed reality environments to extend emotional cues. And many businesses are using these environments to help train sales staff to become more empathetic, to understand others' emotional responses. So that's a promising space. You can slow down, if you like, the physical reaction of somebody that you're engaging with and tune in and focus in on some of the finer skills, some of the finer emotions, the widening of the eye or the flaring of the nostrils, really useful for people who struggle to read emotional cues. And also obviously in mixed reality environments, because you can bend time and space and place, you have the potential to develop what's called emotional receptivity by placing students in situations in time or current times that they wouldn't normally be, and allow them, if you like, to see and experience and engage world from someone else's perspective, whether that be in a migrant camp or whether that be in an ancient court in Rome. A very different learning experience that connects all of the senses, and beyond that, it connects the emotions to the learning. And as we know, emotion is the gatekeeper of cognition. And when we fully engage the senses and we fully engage the emotions, we're more likely to engage in deep learning, the kind of learning which the class of 2030 need to engage in to be life ready as they leave school in 2030 and enter the workforce and enter further education. So that's all I wanted. I feel like I've gone on for too long, and apologies to that. The research paper, I would encourage you to access that. It picks up on our changing demographic, our aging population, our migrating population, and our urbanizing population, and explores a little bit further, not what does it mean to be college ready or career ready, but what does it mean to be life ready for our young people, the class of 2030? So I'm Mark Sparble, hoping you've got something useful out of this. Microsoft is committed to working with educators, school leaders and system leaders across the globe to empower every learner on the planet to achieve more. Delighted for the opportunity. Enjoy the rest of your day. Feel free to reach out and follow up with anything I've talked about. Thank you.